Looking all cute.
Good evening, everybody. You are
Cute.
tuned into the UpSet podcast, and tonight
Dimples.
we are talking about the church
Cute.
board. How many of you understand your church board? We're going to find out tonight, right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. As I said before, you are tuned into the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you joined us this Sunday evening. And when I say we're, you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about this awesome bunch right here. What's up, guys?
Hello, everyone.
Did you just say when I say weird?
We
Weird. Oh,
mean
weird. Oh, I thought you said when.
we're,
Oh,
yes, when I say
all right.
we're.
Weird.
Tally is present tonight, everyone. He is present.
And we're live. I like to mention when we're live. So we look forward to interacting with all of you. Come on in and say hello. Let us know where you're watching from. It's always cool to see where our viewers are from. And of course, it's always nice running into you. I feel like I run into some of you wherever I go, and that's a great thing. So,
Especially when you're driving.
So what's going on, guys? How's your week been?
It's been unique. It's been unique.
Hi, Dr. Daniels. Unique. That's loaded, Tally.
Well, I mean, I am retiring again. I haven't announced it publicly, but I'll be leaving the radio station in 2 weeks, and
Wow.
and so finding another pathway. I don't know what it'll be, but
Tally has 9 lives. Therefore, there are 9 retirements.
Wow. All right. Hello to Stephen Cart watching from Iowa. Okay.
Hey, those Central States, good people out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was just with my Zimbabwean friends at their camp meeting this week in Ohio. Shout out to them. If any of them are watching, we had a wonderful time.
Awesome.
Wow.
Hey, brother Mike Williams. How you doing? And Pat, I mean, I feel like as much as we've had going on this week, I'm sure many of us were not as busy as you were, or you are, I should say.
Yeah, I'm actually taking time out right now, live, and this so I can take this mini vacation before I go back out to them.
Oh yeah.
There's one thing I noticed with Pat, because I get to run into him every now and then on the campus, and he's got his radio in one hand, he's got his phone in the other hand, and you can hear these little things coming over the devices, and he just is so cool and so calm. I mean, you could hear a little chat on the radio, Pastor Crab, we got a kid hanging out of a tree and it's about to fall. He'll just okay.
Yeah, no problem. We'll work it out. Put a mattress underneath him. Put a mattress underneath.
Yeah, it's just so cool, And I mean to keep up with all of that. I'll tell you, the ACT team in Orion, affectionately known as Miss O.
Yeah.
Guys are handling it very well. It's scary to me when I see those many kids in one spot, but
yeah, this was record breaking. Well, I mean, I always say, at least since I've been here, over 215 kids, right? Over 200. Yeah.
We lost about 4 right now, and
you might want to clarify that.
Lost them. They're gone. No, some have gone home, but 234.
Are you serious?
Wow.
It jumped more because more came the second week.
Yeah, wow. It was like 219.
You gained more than you lost. Wow.
Yeah.
Can I reveal something else, Pat? I just think about it. It's funny. I didn't laugh when I witnessed it, but I think you had 1 or 2 kids that wanted to go home. and he said, call your mother. Call your mother. You know your mother's number? Here, call your mother. And then after that short call, it's like, you're not going home, are you? No.
That is the Pat has the voice of experience. I dropped by yesterday. Myself and the former mayor John Street. We dropped by, and I'm telling you, we walked in there, and Pat and his crew, they were sitting there like tribal chieftains. They just were relaxed, and you could tell that they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, yeah, experience, man. You don't do this for that many years. All right, we have some more people saying hello. Monte Cristo Dude from Jersey, Trevor Byfield watching from West
Ah,
Philly.
good man right there.
It's good to see my pastor on today. So I guess you know who he's talking about.
I love that
Hello
guy.
to Jillian. Oh, she wants to help you up. That's Lena.
Sister Jillian, I made many friends at your church.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. You might want to. Ron Williams may have some thoughts about that statement, but I tell you,
After they met me live, they knew that everything you said was a lie.
they are some of the most passionate, ardent individuals, and you could ever. West Philadelphia is just a great place to be.
And Tally, I think because of you, I have a maybe 8 or 9 of West Philly
The kids
here.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
There's never seen a group of kids like the kids at West. I mean,
Philly.
they're energetic, intelligent, inquisitive, and every once in a while they make a mistake or two.
That's the kids,
But,
though, right?
yeah.
I want to say hello to Mabel. Thanks for watching. Yes, Miss Retha, he survived his first week. He's still here with us. Praise the Lord.
Yeah,
Hi, Jocelyn, just from Germantown. And then Tiffany from Transition World there in the middle.
Yeah, she and the Bishop of North Jersey now.
So, hey, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. So, I even take a pause before I say this. We were looking at where we were in the year, realizing that we're in the middle of July. And, sometimes for us that comes with some somber thoughts. This July 18th, so in 2 days, it will actually be 2 years since the passing of Elder and Sister Fordham. And so we just wanted to take a moment and speak their names and remember them. I know they still very fresh in my mind and my heart, but it just seems like 2 years. I was trying to decide, does it seem like it's been that long?
It actually seems longer to me.
And in some cases, it feels like it never happened.
And then yes, yeah.
I feel like
it was in the middle of the pandemic.
Sometimes I tell myself that he's on one of those Asia trips.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to say they. Every time we look at this, we keep saying him, but remember, we lost 2 in the fire.
Yeah.
So
Henry Fordham. A quick little anecdote. The first time I actually resigned from ministry was unofficial. I was at a board meeting at my church in Germantown. We were just in the middle of the building program. Things were hot and heated. I was having a fit of a time, and Butch came down to meet with the board because I had had enough. And everything got straight, and everybody was happy. And when I saw how happy everybody was, I said, I quit, and walked out the room. And Henry ran behind me in his cowboy boots, and they said, and I don't know how Henry grew up in Philadelphia, and somehow he sounds like he's from Texas. They said, Natalie, I know how you're feeling. He said, but I want you to go back in there for 2 reasons. You don't want to quit like this. And second, if you quit, they're going to make me take this church, and I don't feel like it. I went right back in there and apologized. I'd walk through a wall for that man.
Yeah, he had a way with people.
Yes, sir. So, my dude.
They are greatly missed, hello, Pastor Duncan. Thanks for joining us this evening.
The Bishop of East Philadelphia.
Yeah. Before we jump into our topic for the evening, which is understanding your church board, which I just can't wait to hear what we have to say about the church board. But that the story over the weekend that's kind of been prevalent is the story about the young lady, 25 years old, who in Hoover, Alabama, about 9:30, was it Saturday night, was driving on the interstate and saw a toddler walking, and she pulled over to check it out, and she called 911. And then she called a family member to tell them the same thing she reported to 911. There's a toddler walking. And the family member says they hear her asking the toddler, "Are you okay?" And after that, they hear what sounds like a scream. And then after that is like interstate noise. And the police show up. Her car is there. Her phone is there. Her wig is there, but she's not there. And there's no toddler. And so there was this plea out there for everyone to, people were sharing it, trying to get as much awareness, because that first 24 hours is crucial after someone goes
Right.
missing. So I have to say, social media has really helped with making sure things like that get shared. And of course, she was a Black woman, young woman, and so people were afraid it would get lost, But woke up this morning to the news that she returned to her family, and was being seen at the hospital. No one knows the full details of what happened. Right now, everyone's just rejoicing that she is back home safely. And of course, everyone is praying, because obviously whatever happened was probably traumatic or something of that nature that she's probably healing from. But I have to say, a lot of people were saying it was because of the attention. They're thinking maybe the attention that was surrounding this is what maybe encouraged I don't know. We don't know whether she was abducted. We don't really know, but we're thinking that the media attention is what helped this be a successful.
Were there any UFOs in the area?
Tally.
Did the police find her, or did she just show up?
She walked to her parents. She just came to her parents' home, and then I guess they alerted the police, and then they were reserving questions until after she was seen at the hospital. But they said that they would, of course, provide updates right now. But they were trying to respect the fact that, obviously something happened, and they didn't want to put her under duress after going through that immediately.
As a side note, that speaks directly to these possibilities of individuals being abducted right on the street, human trafficking,
Right on,
and especially with young ladies. There's a great deal of that going on.
Absolutely.
And it's I think there's a new movie that was released on that topic. There's more of it going on than we realize.
Yeah.
We're talking thousands, not a few hundred here and there. We're talking thousands of people being trafficked.
Yeah.
And it's all over the world. It's a terrible state of affairs. But right now, society does not have much. Society at large doesn't have much respect or sanctity for human life anymore.
Yeah. I just, it kind of struck me. And thank you for those who are clarifying some of the details. It was Thursday night that it happened, and she came home Saturday night. And we also hear that she's being treated for shock in the hospital. So that just goes to show. But let's just continue to keep her in.
And where did it happen again, Tosh?
In Hoover, Alabama. This is in Alabama. I think they said that's not far from Birmingham, if I'm not mistaken, 10 miles from Birmingham. So, but anyway, just wanted to mention that. Oh, okay. I hear that they may have to check her for a tracking device as well. All right. Interesting stuff. Interesting world in which we live. Because the first thing I thought was, obviously, if you see a toddler, I mean, you're how do you just drive by that and not respond? Okay, so people are really taking advantage of people's human.
Yes. Oh my word.
Well, yeah, and some people are also being maybe overly cautious, or just cautious, period, because there have been people who have would be lying down on the side of the road, hoping that a good Samaritan would pull over and see what's going on, and then a few other people jump out of the under the bushes, and you get robbed, or your car gets jacked, or
And
so some people are like, okay, yeah, I don't know, is this real, or is this a setup kind of thing?
But the toddler makes you think, oh, I mean, I couldn't leave, because if you saw that and you drove past, imagine the
I would have stopped.
So it's one of those things. But All right, well, let's go ahead and transition now to our topic of the evening. One of the things we said we wanted to do with the UpSet podcast is, talk about current events, things that are happening in the world around us. But we also want to talk about church life and kind of break it down in a way for people to understand church governance and how things run and how members are involved in the structure of the church. And we thought we would tackle the church board.
I tried that once.
You tried to tackle it. How did it work for you?
They ran me over like Bo Jackson.
But first of all, when you guys hear church board, what's the first thing that comes to your mind besides tackling for you, Tally?
The first thing that comes when I think church board is that you want to get a 2x4 that's solid enough that when you walk in the room, they'll understand that board is, Oh, you mean the organization? Oh, the first you think of the guiding deliberative body of the church, the guiding deliberative body of the church, and you often think of headache, even though I must readily admit I never had a whole lot of problems with church boards.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't have bad experiences with church boards, but
That's good too.
but I've seen some and I know of some.
Well, with it, in researching the topic, I didn't think I had to, but I've served on church boards before, been in a church, big deal, right? But it's interesting that some of the posts that I found and some of the responses I found that pastors or elders of the church feel that lots of church boards view themselves as protectors of the church. And this one pastor says, in fact, I've seen board members who view their role as to protect the church from the pastor.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. We're gonna talk more about that. Marlena.
I've had personal experience with that particular line.
Wow.
Sure.
If the church or the board or the church is pressured or pressures the board to deal with the pastor, they feel that that's their job.
That's interesting.
I can see. Yeah, I can see that. And I pastored a church once where I think I had a board like that in Baltimore. No names.
We're Tally.
No, I want them to know I remember. I want them to know I remember.
No, I get
Well,
it.
I can't say that I've had a bad church board. I haven't had, the horror stories that I hear some people where the members get quite verbally
Aggressive.
Yeah, I was about to say aggressive or attacking. I haven't had that. So I've been blessed in my ministry. Not that they always agree, with everything, but we work things out, so it's not too bad.
Pat, I know it's been a while.
It's coming back. Coming back.
Yes.
Introduction.
Yeah, but I've never had a problem. No. Oh, here comes the trauma.
Well, Pat, your church is going to take on your temperament. Takes on the temperament of the leader. You'll be fine.
Cow feathers.
Oh, this is good.
I'll tell you, that is not true.
It is true.
It is not.
I think that there are people on the board that I could remember that always wanted me to know that they paid my salary. There was always that few that would, you're chairing it, but we got this, type thing.
Reminding you who's really in charge. Okay.
Right.
Well, and that comes from ignorance. I think a lot of our church boards don't know who they are and why they exist.
Right.
Yes. And that's why we are here tonight. The UpSet podcast is here to answer those questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's some people see it as a legislative body.
Yeah. Yes, you're
uh,
right, Charles. Yeah.
the controlling,
They
or
think they're Congress.
yeah, and
Yeah.
others see it as, oh, they're representative of the church or the membership. The board represents and is the voice of the membership.
Mm.
I think, while these things may be true in some people's minds, I think it needs to be determined by the church to instruct, or the pastor to instruct the church board as to what their role is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people strive to get on the church board so they can be controlling,
Hmm.
when that's not the responsibility of the church board.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
Guys, before we move on, before we talk more, I just wanted to acknowledge
Monte
this comment.
Cristos. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
saying that there was a fire next door to their church in Jersey City that claimed the life
Mm.
of one. So we're sorry to hear that. Definitely be praying for the family, but also grateful that the church was spared in that, because we know that's not always how it works out. But
Mm.
thanks for sharing that with us, and we'll definitely keep that.
Mhm.
Now I'm wondering, is Havis when Badoui, who says that the board is Congress, is that a question or a statement?
Knowing
It's like a statement.
this is a statement.
Well, I guess, using the word Congress, board members, and some people think that it represents the membership. In
It,
some
and it,
respects, it does, but not necessarily. Um,
I,
you know,
if I might push back gently on that, the membership represents the membership. The board is is an entity that represents the collective ministry of the church.
mhm,
And their deliberation is only it is guidance, it is advisory, because the church at business session represents the membership. And
Mm.
Congress, when you think of Congress, these are individuals who represent constituencies. Board members do not represent constituencies.
right.
And
But there are some that believe that.
yeah, they do.
Right.
They
And
believe that they'll complain to a board member about something and say, "You need to take this to the
take
board."
this to the board.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Right.
board has that. Um, and that's the thing. I wanted to share some of the other comments when I first asked you guys, what do you first think of when you think of board? Some of our viewers were saying, and Mike Williams was saying he had a pastor tell him that he only submitted names to the nominating committee of the people that he wanted on the board. So he kind of stacking the board with those who would agree with what their agenda was. Alker said this is going to be interesting. Tiffany says that sometimes it's how the pastor approaches a board. So, I mean, we've heard even from this panel, you all have had different experiences. Could it be your approach? Not pointing, I'm just asking.
Well,
But I'm not saying that that's
if you have people believing that the board is number one, a body that um, is a steering, if they believe that they are a body with authority, and if they believe that they are representative of other members, then you're going to have a problem with your board. You know,
mm,
I mean,
mm,
the work of the board is to reflect the different perspectives of the variety of ministries in the church to provide guidance and oversight for the carrying out of the church's missiology, and that is to make, train, and send disciples. I mean, when they start
Yeah.
getting all in the weeds of polity and
Right.
budget, that's when your church board becomes preparation H. And that is just a pain where a pill won't reach when that happens.
Mhm.
Boy, I love retirement. God help me.
So,
I would
Dr.
agree
Dan,
with Tally. I would agree. And I would
What,
say that
what
there
day is
are,
this?
yeah,
is July
yeah,
16th,
Jesus is coming.
2023.
Jesus is coming. So have a spirit of togetherness. But anyway, I want to say that I think that there are sometimes that we will certainly use the board to make big, and it must be done with the church body. I did have someone tell me one time, Pastor, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but can you bring it to the whole church? I said, absolutely. But it was during COVID times, so but there are times that us pastors will do that. And it really should be the church at a whole business meeting making those type of decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Daniels asked this question. Does the SDA Church Manual spell out the functions, responsibilities, and scope of the church board? And as a
Yeah.
matter of fact, it does.
Let's pull up that dusty old tome and see what it says.
There is, for those who say, "Oh, I don't have a church manual," there is an electronic version right online. If you Google it, you'll get the PDF. But I found it interesting when I read the responsibilities, and there are 9, and then there's another set of 10. But I'll just read it briefly, just for the sake of answering that question. First of all, every church, it says, must have a functioning board whose members have been elected during a church business meeting. Its chief concern is having an active discipleship in place, which includes both the spiritual nurture of the church and the work of planning and fostering evangelism, like you were saying, Tally. So included in these responsibilities are, number 1, an active discipleship plan. Number 2, evangelism in all of its phases. Number 3, spiritual nurturing and mentoring of members. Number 4, maintenance of doctrinal purity. Number 5, upholding of Christian standards. Number 6, recommending changes in church membership. Number 7, and there are 9 of them, just so you know, oversight of church finances. Number 8, protection and care of church properties. And number 9, coordination of church departments. So I just named 9. Do our boards cover all of those?
Wow, we kind of go backwards. We start with the coordination. We
Yeah.
start with number 9.
Sometimes it starts and stops there, though.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Ask yourself on your board, and this is to everyone listening, how much time gets spent discussing money
Mm.
and personnel
Mhm.
compared to how much time gets spent discussing
Evangelism.
discipleship and evangelism.
Right. Right.
And you will see that our church boards do not understand their mission.
Right.
And you know.
Yeah.
It's first for spiritual growth, and one of the things, as you were listening, Tasha, I think one of the things that's important for a church board, in that its primary role is to guide the church spiritually, but it's also to guide against mission drift.
Mm,
Mm.
mm.
You know, a church can start out one way and end up another way.
Well,
And the church board is the group that said should be able to
Steering.
call it, should be able to say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not our mission statement.
that's what I was going to say just now.
Yeah, our mission is here, but you
That's
guys
it.
are going over there. So we need to try to put that guardrail up to keep us focused."
And the
on
church,
mission.
and the
I
church should have a
think-
plan. A church should have a plan. And when I say a plan, a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. I think that one of the things we forget is that pastors are conference workers, and we go there to make sure that they're still number one in the sisterhood of churches and abide by some of the rules, or not. And I
Say summer, huh, Pat?
yeah, and Callie, the reason why I say some of it is because we look at the church manual as a Bible, and it's not. It's a
It is not.
guideline. And many people who are on our board look at the church manual and say, the church manual says this, therefore we have to do that. And it needs guidance. It needs some type of guidance in order to keep it on track. And the truth is that those who are on your board don't work for the church. They're volunteering for the church while we work for the church. So therefore we are responsible for keeping it in that line.
And if I might just add to what
Come on,
everybody,
Tally. I'm ready for you, Tally. Let's go.
are you skipping me? I just
No. It was his face. Go ahead. Go ahead, Marlena. Go
All
ahead.
right. So I wanted to say most of the time church board members don't know what their role is and what the church board is supposed to do. So they don't know. And then when you do take things to the church body as a whole, many times it's just your church board members and just a couple of others.
Sure.
So oftentimes the church is not even concerned with its own business, right? So if you're going to try and handle it someplace else. And the whole thing about the evangelism, that has to be the the mission of the pastor to keep pushing it to make sure. But it is even hard trying to get people to come to your board meeting. Sometimes you have to say, I need everybody at my board meeting, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
one of the agenda has to be disfellowshipping.
Pat, I was just going to say to tell them
The
we're
threat
going to
of
disfellowship a member. They will come out,
They'll be there.
and then when they get there, say, you know what, he repented and he came back to Christ, and so we're not going to talk about that. But we do have this issue.
What?
But,
Well, I had an experience the first time I served on a church board was at North Philadelphia Church many years ago. We had horses and buggies walking up and down 17th Street. But yeah, it was my first experience on a church board, young adult Adventist. And, I just, I didn't, I don't know, I didn't take it too seriously. But when they came to the agenda of this fellowshipping a young lady, I politely raised my hand and asked the chairman of the board to excuse me. And chairman, which is the pastor, said, excuse you. I said, I personally can have no part in just fellowshipping an individual, especially this individual. And I said, if you would excuse me, I'll step out in fellowship hall. When you all get to the agenda item of voting on fixing the chimney, I'll be happy to come back. Because I just,
I like
but
that.
others were just very like, oh, that's what we do. That's our job.
long knives come
They
out for that.
uphold the standards of the church.
Lord have mercy.
Maybe I was just too young and naive, but I couldn't be a part of that
I
vote.
like your stance, sir. I like your stance.
I actually want to go back to something Marlena said about a lot of people don't understand their role on the board or what the board does. Whose responsibility is it to train the board members? Is there a board orientation? Like, do you just come in and kind of figure it out by watching and observing? Like, what is that, or what should that look like? I don't know what it looks like currently.
I think at one time, or do we make it a part of our normal operation and headquarters to do a seminar workshop on church boards as well as school boards?
I've never attended anything like that.
It's like trying to milk a kangaroo. I mean, you just don't get a lot. You can't do it in one afternoon.
Okay, so Pat mentioned earlier that the pastor is the chair of the board, right? Typically, I mean, although we know there's some circumstances where that can be delegated to an elder. And you guys tell me, I didn't go to, I don't have my degree in theology, or I didn't get my master's in divinity. Is there some part in your educational journey that you're taught how to run a board? Like, is that part of the training? I don't know. It's not.
No.
That's like job training.
Yeah, it's OJT there. I mean, I got lucky. I was USM president, and I had to learn how to chair meetings and carry votes and all. And so when I came out of Oakwood, I was pretty well equipped with that. But I realized there was nothing that trained you for the practical nature of actually running a meeting and how to carry a vote. And
that's very important.
Yeah.
I think we had a class that dealt with Robert's Rules of Order, and they tried to use the church manual as a basis. I could remember some of those things, but even as I remember being in that class, the teacher was teaching us how they did it, or how they did it at one time. But I think that every church has a personality. And every pastor has a personality, and you got to be at a point where you got to meet in the middle in some way or another. So I think that you can't walk into a classroom and they tell you this is the way it's going to be done. There's just one way to do it. It's so many different ways to skin a cat on the church board. One of the things that surprised me more than anything else over the past couple of years, especially with the pandemic, is that there are church board meetings on Zoom. And I was like, and I was saying, how did they do that? I mean, I just can't understand how, and and I'll say it out loud. I've interim all the churches that I've interim that had it on Zoom was quicker to the point. It was over. It was quick. I think when we come together and we're sitting amongst each other, it gives us this lion or lioness mentality that we all have to fight for something. But while it was on Zoom, it was just give us the facts.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I
Wow.
I want to go back real quick concerning the board. And I agree with you, Tosh, that us pastors should really take the lead on explaining the role
Mhm.
um, for each member. And I have to be very honest. I haven't always done that. You know, when people come in, you just add them to the board when they take over a new position, and then you carry on. I do know some churches, like what Pat was saying, people are doing some things differently now. Some churches choose a small nucleus of people to do the evangelism, while the larger, board talks mission, not mission, but ministry or
That makes sense.
department, ministries that you're doing. Because when you go in and discuss everything, it takes so long, that people get weary, and you can't have long meetings, right? And so you have that little extra, and then that's not favorable, because some people's like, oh, we don't want this. It's the job of the board to decide those things. So I think us as pastors, we must take the lead, as is being stated, to explain what the purpose of the church board is, and be consistent with that. Now, when it comes to business things,
Mm.
because we got to handle the business of the church, though, because things happen when
Right.
you bring it to a business meeting to decide. It's really just your church board and a couple of other people. And it's hard to get them out, so it's very challenging. And I think that's why the church board has taken over those other responsibilities as well.
One of the problems I often see with boards is, number one, they become over large. I
Mm.
mean, and they lose their ability to provide a level of focus and be deliberative. When you have 40 board members, that's just too many people. I
Mhm.
remember a time sitting trying to get a quorum because the board was too big, and that's a problem. And the other one is that the board takes on too many responsibilities. The board shouldn't be hashing through financial details. That's what your finance committee is for.
That's
I mean,
right. That's right.
Mm.
and these things should be done in smaller group settings. I would love to see a point where the board of elders becomes the steering council for the church, and of course, nothing is done per se without the approval of the church in business. And if I could get to a place where the board of elders were leading the church, and steering the church, and then it comes to the church and business. And if I could banish to the seventh level of infernal hell the nominating committee, I
Uh-oh.
think we would be even better. You know.
Tally,
What-
before I even want to before I
Understand.
even go to touch that part, one of the practices that I had that made it very easy for board meetings for me is that I always had a elders meeting before to help
Hmm.
me set the agenda for the board meeting.
Mm.
This way, I already have an idea of where we're going, and don't come up with anything brand new on them either. I think the board of elders gives you the opportunity of steering what's going to happen in that meeting. So I think that is it was one of my secret weapons is to is and that time the elders sat on the board. All of them did.
Yeah, yeah. Same
Um,
same at West. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
When a pastor comes to a church as a new pastor, new leader, um, is it your opinion, as the three pastors that are on, is it your opinion that a church or a board would expect that pastor to come with or develop a strategic plan for the church? And that strategic plan would then be shared with the church at large.
Yeah. I mean, every year,
Really?
at the beginning of the year, I share our plans for the year with the whole church at the very beginning of the year, so that everyone knows all of the plans, the
Mhm.
goals for that year, the theme for that year, and then we discuss that. And then, along the way things are updated. But the whole church is aware.
And as
Well,
a result of that, do you guard against what is characterized as mission drift? You get off your strategic plan some way, drift off of it, and focusing and using energies in other places that had nothing to do with your strategic plan?
Well, I mean, sometimes things just happen. You have to handle them. And it just depends on what it is. It may be something that works in collaboration with what we're doing. I don't think we're drifting too far off. I don't have that issue.
We have some follow-up questions for some of the comments. Tally, there's a question for you. Rodney's asking, are you saying that every board action should be ratified by a business session?
I literally just answered, Ronnie, because it's a good question. The object of the board is to do business, to occupy in the absence of the church between sessions. There's some things that are too urgent to be ratified. I mean, the church is on fire. You don't say, well, we'll take a motion. Are you ready for the question? Question is called. Oh, there's a second. And we're going to take this to the church and business session and keep spitting on the fire until the church and business session meets. Sometimes you just have to act. Like I told my deacons, look, if you have to act, act. And then, come back and we review this thing. And the objective of the board is to review and to advise and to offer counsel if necessary, and the church does the same. You can't always wait, but everything has to go before the church for its consideration. For example, if we spent $5,000 on some equipment, even though we spent it 2 months ago, it still goes before the church, and then the church could say, well, did you consider this? And we say, no, next time we will do that.
That's right.
The church has to understand that the board and the church have to understand the idea is not to catch people. The idea is to edify and to build up and to provide advice and counsel.
Yes.
And so if I make a mistake, and I've made plenty of mistakes, and told the church, hey, look, I made a mistake on that one. And I had one church board tell me one time, one member said, well, we're just wondering what you up to. I said, what are you talking about? They said, you're up there apologizing, talking about you made a mistake. Well, what are you really up to? I said, I'm apologizing because I made a mistake. Yeah, but what are you trying to cover? And I realized, and that's when actually the next week I called the conference and says, it is time for me to expedite my exodus. And I did.
Some PTSD.
I have a question for you. And this is based on a true story. The names, will not be divulged to protect the innocent. Anyway, can a church board have a church board meeting without the chairman?
The chairman?
Yeah, you can pay someone to be the chairman.
Mm-hmm.
You can you can use your head elder or someone to chair.
There's a reason I asked that question. And
can a meeting be called without a chair?
Without the pastor as chair?
Called, no.
Okay.
Right.
So,
the pastor can appoint
unless the chair designates something.
That I served on a board. I got a phone call one night and said, we're having an emergency board meeting. I said, oh, really? He said, yes. I said, okay. Is the pastor aware? No. Pastor's not aware because
that's a crooked meeting.
He's the agenda.
Yeah, that's a crooked.
The pastor's the agenda. Yes.
That's a coup.
So in this particular situation, I called the pastor. I said, Pastor, did you know of a meeting, that board meeting is being called?
You were snitch, Charles?
I love Chuck.
Oh yeah.
They don't have foolishness in Chuck's church.
Absolutely. I called him and said, you know anything about it? He said, no. I said, well, head elder called me and said they're having a board meeting. I didn't think we could do that. He said, well, they can meet anytime they want to. They can meet out in the parking lot. They can do, but it's not a board meeting. I said, I agree.
True. Yeah.
So I went to that meeting. And of course, it was one of these witch hunt type meetings. And I sat there and I listened to everybody. And I said, are you all finished now? And I said, yeah, we finished. We want you to sign this letter. Send to the conference. I said, well, first of all, this is not an official board meeting. Number one.
Let's not call it that.
Number two, I'm not signing anything. And number three, I do not participate in a board meeting without the official chairman of the board. And I got
Amen.
up and I left the room.
You've been leaving a lot of board
We don't,
meetings, you know.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
sir.
we don't like
Yes,
you
sir.
in your church.
I don't have, I don't, I, you know, we think, you know, when we get a little position, some of our folk think, you know, we're in charge and we can govern and we can do. Half of the folk are just operating off of personal, you know, feelings or whatever. And I said, you know, you folk don't know how to have a meeting. You don't know how to have a meeting. And I don't know. I mean, that could be the case in a lot of churches, but, you know, learn how to have a meeting. Learn how to, if you have a gripe or whatever, let's be adult about it.
Yeah.
You know,
You
let's
know,
be
one
adult
of
about
one of the
it, you know?
biggest problems that we have is that the church manual is made for the world church, and there's some things that does not fit in the North American style. So, for example, elders, they're, you know, first elders are big in places where the pastor has 13
12
churches.
Yeah.
churches.
Yeah.
But if you have a church, one pastor, it really should be split among the elders, their responsibilities. But we're so used to saying first elder or head elder, when all the elders should simply have their responsibilities and not head. First elders, because of the world church, and you cannot fit the amount of pastors that's there. So the first elder takes that responsibility as leading the church, which
Right.
gives him the opportunity, or her the opportunity, to call board meetings, but they're all called on that one pastor who says, I give you the opportunity or the right to be able to call those meetings. But for even elders cannot call those meetings on their own.
Well, Tasha, can you put up that comment by Tiffany?
Yeah. Which one about this? Which one?
Yeah,
This one?
that was the case. In the case I just
That
mentioned,
wasn't special. That was
Yeah.
not disgusting.
It was
Oh, it
special.
was something
all
they
right.
were
special.
planning something
It was
special.
special.
I'll do
Trying to
something.
get rid of him.
But I understand what Tiffany is saying. Yes, there are times when the church wants to plan something, you know,
Just be careful going into
recognition
board
or
meetings.
appreciation. I understand that. But
Yeah.
So one of the things that I could remember, I hope that it works out again, is that I'd like each to report what they have done or what they're doing connected to the vision or connected to evangelism. What is it? You see a lot of people drop off when they have to report what they're not doing.
Mhm.
So
That's true.
it's
That's
so if you start the meeting with, okay, what are you bringing to the table, and you have nothing to bring to the table, I think it quiets it down. But in some cases, it also makes it a whole lot more where somebody wants to tell another department how they should do their work. I think
Okay.
that. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that made me think about what Rodney just said here, that he doesn't think that it's necessary for all department heads to sit on the board. Now, this is often an area of controversy as I talk to different leaders.
Yeah.
And so just so people know, because I know you said, Pat, how you know, it's different contexts sometimes looking at the manual. But when I saw the list of people that should be on the church board according to the manual,
It's like the Million Man March.
I was like, really? And just
Yeah.
so you guys know, elders, head deacon, head deaconess, treasurer, clerk, interest coordinator, ACS leader, Adventist men's coordinator, possibilities ministries, which I don't even know what that is, but
You know why that is, Tasha?
why?
Because there's a bunch of people sitting in offices in Silver Spring and in other places who recognize the only way they can get their agenda through is to have people in the local churches representing their ideas and ideals and the mission of their office at a decision-making capacity of the local church. And so they press to have those officers installed on the church board. And most of them have not pastored since Homer was a pup. And so you get all of these folks on the board tripping all over each other.
Yeah.
What they should be on, these department heads, they should be on different councils. You're on personal ministries council, you're in the finance council. And then when the councils meet under the guidance of their elders, this becomes the steering agenda for the church, and then you bring it to the board or to the church in general. There's some things don't even need to come to the board. You
Yeah,
just take it
yeah.
directly to the church, But
And Pat, I remember when I was working with youth ministries, how some of the adventurer, pathfinder directors were saying they're not part of the board, so it's
Right.
hard for them to get. But I'm looking here, and under youth ministries alone, they're saying that the adventurer, the pathfinder, the young adult, all those leaders should be there. One of the questions I get as a communication director: shouldn't I be on the board? And of course, I'm going to say yes because,
of course,
but the manual says it too. I mean, but
of course,
there's so many on here. And I do think that, like you were saying earlier, Tally, it can become too heavy. You have more people on the board than you do, or let's say 80% of the membership on the board in some cases, when you're having so many leaders on there. So how do you all decide? I mean, because I realize it's different for every church. So
I want to say real quick before someone answers who decides who gets on the board. If it goes back to the thought that the board controls the church, it represents the membership. That's the thought mentality of the church, no matter what we're saying right now. So people want, your young adults on the church board, right? To make sure that the young adults are heard. You want your youth ministries on the board so that there is a voice, because we're missing it with, discussing evangelism in our ministries, concentrating on the soul winning. We're slipping there, and therefore some people feel their voices aren't being heard, and church is not getting them. They're being missed. And so we have to be very strategic with who we do place on the board so that there is full inclusion of all of the people in the church.
And I think what drives that would be the mission, right? Like you were saying, when you presenting those goals, obviously the people, those ministries that are most directly linked to those would maybe be the ones that would be appointed. I don't know, because some people feel slighted when you tell them they're not a member of the board. It's like, what do you mean?
Well, I think it would be more functional if it is the policy of the board to have representative elders. For instance, have an elder who is on the board, but is also representative for youth department, all aspects of youth department. And that elder would have meetings with those department heads to deep dive into the needs and the requests and things like that. That elder then brings that to the board for discussion as a representative of that group. It would seem to be, to me, a much more functional governance process.
And that's if they meet.
The elders. I mean, one of the problems we have is that the ordained positions of the church, and there would be the elders and the deacons and the deaconesses. For those of you who don't know your Greek, deaconesses are deacons, and so, but the position of the elder is not to be an associate pastor per se. The Greek word that is often interpreted elders is episkopos. It's a compound Greek word, epi, above or over, skopos, to look, to see, to oversee. The elder's task is to oversee a particular function of the church. And so each elder should be overseeing some function of the church. It isn't how good do they look sitting up on the dais. It isn't, whether or not they know how to, the idea that elders are the people. Typically, we choose elders because they can read well or they talk well in front of people. But the idea is they're supposed to have the ability to oversee ministry, to oversee the mission of the church. And if they're doing that, then they should be on the board if they're doing that.
Yeah. So Rodney had a proposal of was that the one of the base? Now he says head elder, clerk, treasurer, maybe personal ministries, and everyone else is pretty much negotiable.
Rodney getting ready to get in trouble.
Yep.
Hey, Rodney, I'm going to look. I got a seat next to me on the retirement bus.
Nah, just come back home. Or
what if Joseph Hare's comment? I thought was very
yeah. That's I like that too. I'm getting to that one. Here we go. Sorry, my computer.
Okay.
You said, let's not overlook the challenge of local church optimization when the pastor isn't skilled in management. Robust board success may require meetings without the pastor in order to make progress. Uh-oh.
I don't know. I
No.
don't know. No, no,
I think you
not
should still
without,
meet with the pastor,
not
Joe.
not
Um,
without the pastor.
No.
yeah, still meet with the pastor. I mean,
Unless the pastor designates someone to chair the board in his absence.
Right, correct.
You know, I'm a, I'm a,
If the
sti- I'm a
pastor
stick.
doesn't know what they're doing and they're not getting anywhere, they need to exclude the pastor. Is that
Who
what
said that?
No,
Who said
I'm
that?
asking if that's what Joe, because he's
Oh.
saying the pastor isn't skilled in management.
Ichabod.
I'm just-
can we all just get along? I think.
No.
I think.
I'm sorry.
Look. We as pastors got to listen to the people. People
Yep.
have to listen to the pastor so that we can all work together. It can't be, a thing where. I mean, sometimes the church. I mean, like when Tyler gives his experiences, sometimes people think the pastor is up to no good or trickery or some other things that Havis was saying. You know,
Without
I
the
I would just
impediment
be
of a pastor.
hopeful that
Wow.
we could come together and ministry is first. And I think when we neglect to put ministry and evangelism first, then you get all this bickering and stuff that's going on because we shouldn't have divisiveness, between our boards and pastors. It just shouldn't be.
Yeah, it holds you up. So Joseph, I put it up there briefly. He was kind of giving some
Even if
more.
just to have substantive discussion without the impediment of a pastor, golly day,
It's okay.
Joseph.
It's
I mean,
okay.
Micromanages.
You guys are a different breed of pastors, so you have to understand that he may.
no, 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 no,
So I was
no.
saying, no case, regardless of how.
Joseph, here's the thing.
Okay.
The language without the impediment of a pastor is suggestive of a certain perspective
sure.
that I sense is going to be counterproductive in the long run. In the long run. And
You
if you
know,
have a pastor and you perceive that he cannot manage, then that's a conversation that needs to be had with the pastor and say, listen, this is what we perceive that we need. And we don't think that we are getting that from you. And then you talk that out. But, you
let's
know,
remember
Well, it goes
also.
back to my original statement when we opened up. When one author said that board members feel that they are protecting the church from the pastor.
from the pastor, yeah.
I remember an elder said to me, "This is not your church.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to move one day, and we're going to still be here."
Mm-hmm.
And they're right. There has
True.
to be some type of marriage between the pastor and the church. And I do think that there are more horror stories out there for the few than it is for the for everyone else. You always hear the horror stories, but I've never heard somebody come and say, "Hey, you know what? We have great board meetings," and we don't hear that. We only hear of the negative side of it. But I want to tell you that there's one church that I was at that I loved board meetings. It was good.
Hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
was good. It was good to meet up together. It wasn't a drag. I enjoyed going there, and I considered that since I'm the one that set the agenda, if it goes past a certain mark, um, I consider did I do the right thing? Did I allow the people? And I said the word allow, right? I know we don't like to hear those words, but do I allow them to speak too long? Do I allow them to put their
You're the chairperson. You can say that. Did you allow?
okay, well, yeah, and then people look at it as favoritism. You're favoring this one or over this one or the other. But I've had relatively good meetings.
So, and I have to ask you then, what made it a good meeting based on what made it a good meeting? How did you measure that?
The information comes across. The information from the conference comes across. You've got to remember that. I mean, there's certain information that's given from the conference level that the pastor must relay to the church and relay it properly. Also, if you have a vision statement or and you're working to that vision statement, there should always be some type of stats to show that that it's working or it's not
Yeah.
This is
working.
where we are. This is
This
where
is
we need
where
to
we
go.
are. Yeah, because there's got to be a time. I know that there's certain things I didn't like about the church, but you have to allow them to find themselves there, and sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. But it's what it is, you know.
There are a couple of things, and I know we're getting ready to put down the landing gear. Number one, we have to ask ourselves biblically, what should a church board be and do?
Sure, you're
And
right.
that is a trick question because there's nothing in the Bible about a church board.
Sure.
Period. That's first. And so
Yeah.
a church board is something that we made up for function. That is the first thing that we have to do. The second thing we have to recognize is that in Adventist churches, particularly, um, there's a problem because most churches have staff, and
Mm.
staff is different from board.
Yes.
And because Adventists believe that he don't need no staff, he get paid tithe. He don't need no nothing. I remember one church I had where I said I'd like to have a phone on my desk. He said, "What do you need a phone for?" And I told him, I said, because the tin cans I use with the string ain't long enough for me to talk to people. I mean, literally, this is what happened. And so because we don't have a staff, you really don't have people facilitating business. You just have people deliberating about stuff. And so
Mm.
that's problematic with our churches. And last but not least, a church should operate from the perspective of planning and doing events based on relationships that they form with the community that they're in. But we go in the opposite direction. We plan events and hope to build relationships from what we plan.
Right.
And it is an absolute reversal of how to do ministry. But
Say that
what
one
do
more
I know?
time, Sally. Say that one more time, please.
A church, when Jesus says that, that commandment, go into the world and make disciples, actually is not saying go into the world. It actually says, as you're going about, make disciples. In other words, your relationships should be the way that you build your programming for discipleship. Relationships, and then out of that, you build programming. What we do is we build programming, and out of that, we hope to form relationships. We go to a community and say, we're going to have a nonstop, we're going to have a no smoking clinic. The community say, we ain't asked for that. It doesn't matter. We know what you need. And then we hope to build a relationship out of that. And that's a problem. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. Okay, guys, I know we have to wrap up, but I did want to mention something because it's closely related to the board, and we touched on a little bit, and that is the business meeting. Because when we were talking about the constituency session, we always kept saying that the power is really with the people, right? And the same thing applies to the local church. The church business meeting is the body. The members are the governing. Well, I don't call it governor. The members.
They are. You're right.
they are.
The governing. Yeah, I guess they are the governing body, so they can challenge the board and make recommendations to the board. They have the final say.
No, they don't make recommendations to the board.
Well,
They
They
make
tell
decisions.
the board what to do.
Yeah.
They make decisions on
They
the
are
floor.
definitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me. That's good. Be clear.
Let me give you a quick example, Tasha.
Okay.
Give them a
There was
quick
this-
example. Man, she getting an
there-
example right
There
now.
was this guy that came to me and he said, I got a girl pregnant. And
He said, you got a girl pregnant, Pat?
no. Let me
The
put in
guy
quotations.
said
He
he
said,
got-
I got a girl pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Sally knew what he said.
And automatically in
Whatever.
disciplining, they the church found out in the discipline. Somebody got up in the church and recommended that his discipline is that we love him.
Wow. Doing the business meeting.
Now, I did not put the church into business session, but then it made me put the church into business session by the overwhelming love that they had for that young man, that it made me open up the floor to call for a vote that would be his discipline. There's elders were upset about it. There are people on the board that was upset about it. And I had to tell them that's not your right. They told us what to do, and we went ahead with it. That's a point that I want to bring. I don't know if it'll last this day, but
No, but I just don't think people know that they, because those business meetings are not well attended. At least the ones that I've been, people are like, I'm not staying for that, or I'm not coming back for that. But the
it's
business
like Tally has it on Wednesday night so that nobody.
But the business meeting has the authority over the board And they can also delegate responsibilities to the board in addition to those that even the manual says. So even if you don't like, if you're saying, nah, I want you to do something else, uh, the church can do that. But I don't know. I just don't feel like we utilize that. We come and rubber stamp things and vote, and then after it's over, we complain about
Yeah,
how could they
yeah.
vote that and how could they do that. You know what I mean? Like, use your
You know,
voice. Use your voice.
I always said, and I'm going to get in trouble for this. I don't know if there's going to be a part two. That there's nothing secret on the board.
True,
Nothing.
It should
true.
not be. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about somebody, oh, don't go out there and say this, say that, or the other. I'm saying they are in representation of the church body. Whatever we say at the board meeting, the church body should know.
True.
So even in this day and age, in the digital age that we're in right now, I don't see a problem in putting our board meeting agendas and minutes or whatever online for the members to be able to see it, so that when they come to a business meeting, they're ratifying. They're saying, you guys did a great job at this. Maybe 0.924, so and so. You should have got 3 recommendations instead of 2, or something of that nature. You should hear something like that. But I see that we should be prudent and careful on some of the things that's being said, especially if it's something we're continuing to talk about. But there's no secret on the board.
The best way to spread the gospel is to go into a board meeting and say, listen, I don't want you telling anybody, this is confidential, but Jesus died to save sinners. Please don't tell anybody.
And they
By
won't.
tomorrow, it'll be all over to the West Coast.
As soon as you say don't tell anybody.
So
Joseph, it's okay. Let's, he said his apologies if his comments stirred misunderstanding. The pastor is the leader for divinely appointed reason. Hopefully the local boards will also be seen to have a divine purpose as well. So I think we all took it in.
We thank you for sharing that.
Sally, do you accept Joseph's?
Of course, of course. I mean, look, the fact that he's here and sharing tells me that he is a connected and interested member. It's just that I know that when the language itself, where the pastor is an impediment, it will fuel thoughts in people who are unconsecrated.
Sure.
And
okay, that's fair.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, we welcome all comments, and I hesitated when I said that. Well, respectful comments, and we can disagree and come back to a point of understanding. I think we were able to do that. I'm looking at some of the other comments, but once again, we always appreciate the engagement in the chat. For those who are listening to this on the various podcast platforms, make sure you go back and check out the YouTube and the Facebook version so you can read some of the comments. They're always helpful, and sometimes we don't get to all of them, but we appreciate all of them. So I just, in wrapping up, I think my biggest takeaway in looking at the board and its responsibilities and everything is that I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis on the evangelism and discipleship nature of what the board is supposed to do. I feel like in terms of how it's weighted, in terms of the agendas, is not always the way it should be. Sometimes it's thrown in at the end. Sometimes we don't even get to that part in some cases. So I just think that as we look at our boards, maybe reevaluate whether we are focusing on what we were really supposed to be doing as a board.
And if your church board is not working, soak it in motor oil and swing from your shoulder next time and see how that will.
And if I might add, let's certainly work together and not be divisive. I know that that there are different pastors out there and how they lead, I'll say.
Right.
And that should be conversation. If you feel that your pastor's not listening to you, then talk about that. And prayerfully, he or she will certainly listen. And then we can all work together. And then as church board members, listen to your pastor, because it's not always the pastor. Sometimes there are members who will fight down everything that God is trying to do, and they think they have all the answers, and then you can get nothing done spiritually. And we're not there to be a country club, but we're there to be a ministry in the community. So it's both sides. Let's just work together so that God's work can get done and we not be in the way.
That's the ultimate goal. Yes, and go to your business meetings.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes. Yes, we as board members need to be in prayer for our pastor. Yes.
Brother H, I tell you, it would have been fun to have served as your pastor. It would have been.
He is
No,
hilarious.
he wouldn't. He wouldn't like it, Brother Havens. He would have retired 3 times.
Listen, that is that is Pastor Defoe. Pastor Defoe is pastoring there. They're having a great time. So whatever he's saying, don't worry about him. He's having a great. They're all having a great time.
He said he would love him. Yeah, you guys
already do. I'm thinking about coming back.
Come on.
I just thought about it. Nah, I won't do it.
I hate to end when there's a question in the chat. So this is going to be the last thing, because I think we kind of alluded to this a little bit. Joseph's question: is the church manual a source of foundational guidance or just suggestions that maybe you should consider doing this? How do you guys view the manual?
Go ahead, Tally. I'm waiting.
Guidance.
Guidance. Okay.
Guidance. Except for the place where it is church voted polity, it is guidance.
Okay.
And okay, let me help him with that, because I think he has a lot of big words. The church, the church at business can even override the manual.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we were building Germantown, our church at business session voted to override the manual, and I called the president and told him we had done so, and he said, "We can't do that." I said, "We have done it, and if you don't cooperate, I will sue you."
Oh.
And then I went into a career in radio.
No wonder you got fired. I see.
Let me tell you, it was a rough time. I'll tell you.
Yes, right.
You can say that if you want to, but
this is a great way to end. If all our boards were like the UpSet podcast, so much would get done, right? Maybe.
May not have a church.
And Defoe is
Chuck's not signing anything, so I think we'd have a good church, Chuck.
One of the reasons Defoe is so transparent is because he is so mentally healthy and aware. Yes. And he doesn't carry a lot of things a lot of us carry into the pulpit. And
Defoe?
Yeah.
I have not.
David Defoe.
For those who didn't see the comment, Tavis was saying that they love Pastor Defoe down there in Shiloh because he is so transparent, and so Tally was responding to that comment.
Yeah, we always say
I will add that he's too transparent.
Sometimes.
Well, he's good. He's great.
I love that cat. He's just we always say, man, if you can't have Defoe, then get the 5. But at least one of them.
Okay, and I know it's time to go. Here it goes.
Yes, it's time to go. I don't know. Okay, so great discussion, guys. I hope that through the course of it, you've learned a little bit more about how your church board operates, and maybe go refresh yourself on the manual or whatever it takes. But let's just be intentional about doing what God has called us to do locally.
Indeed.
You gonna say something, Tally?
No, is there any truth to the fact that Justin was tied up by his board members and put in the closet, which is why he can't make it today?
I think it had something to do with VBS or something like that. Yeah, I think that was more it.
Why did I actually picture it though?
I know, right? I was following
VBS, vicious board syndrome.
Oh gosh, yes, you're right, Miss Retha. It is time to go.
Let me go look at the Lifetime movie, Chuck. We'll have time to be messing with Tally.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Once again, if you have some suggestions about other topics, another board we're going to cover is the school board. Some of you guys on the school board are wondering what the role of the school board is.
I remember that back when we used to have church schools. Yep.
Back when we got to talk about that. But if you have some other things you want us to tackle, please email us upset@acsda.com. We always appreciate hearing suggestions from you. Also, at the end of the outro, stay tuned for our UpSet merch commercial. We thank you guys so much for those who have donated and purchased. We are anxious for our next worthy cause. So also, if you have a cause that we should be looking out for as a potential next UpSet grant, let us know. We want to be poised and ready to help. But thanks for joining us. We appreciate you tuning in because, if it's Sunday,
It's hot.
UpSet podcast.
Thank you, Marlene. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, darling. I had to help you because
Tally's not going to do it. I know. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
what is going on tonight?
Just wipe this out. I think the computer's on drugs.
Guys, come on, it's our merch.